Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
Now, here's your host, Ed Cohen.
This is Ed Cohen. You're on Global TV Talk Show again, and I'm in San Diego, and it's 2:22. And this is one of the most unusual times. And this is about current events, geopolitics. What does that mean? We're going to get into that. And how it's impacting more than ever talent and company strategy about talent from here, there, and everywhere, of course. And with us and helping me orchestrate this and learn is David Edick Jr., who's a master at this kind of thing. David, why don't you quickly introduce yourself a lot better than I just did?
Wow. Okay. So I'm a global political economist. I trained to go into international investment banking. So economics, history, political science, to understand the context in which business is conducted. That all took me to Russia in the 90s. Been involved in business, non-government affairs in Russia since then to this day. Past president of the World Affairs Council, past president of the Sister Cities program here in San Diego, and I advised some hedge funds here in the past on doing business in emerging markets.
And with us from Geneva, Switzerland, is Pierre Geronimo, who's a veteran of the employee relocation business, has grown from a small company into a giant in Switzerland. Pierre, why don't you take it from here?
I thank you, Ed, and thank you for your invitation. Well, my name is Pierre Geronimo. I've been in global mobility for something like 27 years, I should say 20 plus. I think we should stop counting. I'm the managing director for GEO-POLITICS in Switzerland, which is a global organization specializing in recruiting and relocating talents across the world. I have been assigned in different countries throughout my career. I would say I was born and raised in France. I worked in Budapest. I've been based in the Netherlands. I worked in Russia, and I worked in France, and I've been in Switzerland for 20 years. So quite familiar with global mobility myself and as a family.
Yeah, and Pierre has co-sponsored and hosted my live meetings in the old days in Switzerland many times, including the last one I think was the best one ever in Credit Suisse. It was a wonderful event. Thank you again.
Yeah, and I can go back to even in Paris many years ago.
Oh, yeah. Right,
yeah. Right. We should not say that, Ed. We are young.
I know. I mean, some people are going to say, he's too old. I'm not going to talk to him. Okay. So talking about age, here's Mark Nadich, who's too young to retire from industry, but he did. Mark?
Thanks. I spent 30 plus years working in corporate America for amazing companies, Abbott, the spinoff AbbVie, and also SC Johnson. And also started my career at Northern Trust in banking. Almost all of it in HR as well as in other functions. But the last 4 or 5 years, I've been focused in 3 areas. One is education. The other one is philanthropic work. And the third one is continuing to do work in human resources.
I also want to add in, without embarrassing you, Mark, it's very, very involved in the Catholic Church and charities in Kenosha, Wisconsin area. And he has, he's a graduate of Marquette University in the Milwaukee area. And he was explaining to me that recently they came to him and offered him a job. He's just starting now as executive in residence, which means he's going to be of counsel to graduate students as well as undergraduates. And so I know you're just in the early stage now of setting it all up, but
sure.
What do you think is going to be your first class or your first session?
It was last week. I taught a class on culture, global cultures. And it was a terrific opportunity. Marquette has some amazing academic, well-known leaders in the world. And so I get a great opportunity to spend time with them and learn from them and hopefully add a value or two.
Sure. Gary Sanger and I have known each other for a couple of years now, and has been on some of our earlier shows going way back a couple of years ago. Seems like it's a long time. Gary, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here, Ed. Thank you. I'm a farm kid from Idaho, and having joined the Air Force right out of high school, David, I learned Russian. So as I go back to the days a long time ago, my corporate background was American Hospital Supply. Today, you would know it as Cardinal Health, Citibank, Security Pacific, and the like, an HR background. I founded and run a search firm, a retained search firm here in the Los Angeles area in '99. So our focus is retained executive search. Anything to do with manufacturing, supply chain, technology, engineering in the industrial, aerospace and defense, and consumer products verticals. That's where we do most of our work.
Let me ask you the difference between retained executive search and the other.
Well, the other would be contingency, where in fact they're representing the people, the individuals looking for a job, and they then in fact get paid when in fact one of those folks are hired. Retained is an exclusive confidential relationship with the company where we're out there trying to round out their senior management and executive teams. I'm a proud member of IRC Global Search Partners, which is an alliance of 45 countries, 90 cities with fellow business owners in search. And we then have a global reach with our clients. I'm located here in Los Angeles, and I am wondering if baseball is actually going to happen this year.
I
Yes.
certainly hope so. You think these guys are making enough money, but they want more, I guess.
Yeah, more is why we're nice to be here, Ed. Thank you.
I'm really honored to have you and your perspective on talent. We're going to get into that deeper. Mark, one of your jobs these days is doing on a part-time basis, also executive search.
Correct. Our company is a little unique and different from pure executive search in that we do two other things besides the search. One is consulting projects. And if someone is interested in using executive leaders for consulting products, and we place executives into interim roles. So those are the two other things. And I do focus on the executive search side of the business. And that just kind of grew over the last 5 or 6 years. Patina's been around for about 14 years.
Yeah, and I was honored to have Mark and his partners in Patina on a show last year, and it was just fascinating. So I want to go back to Pierre now, because he's bright enough to see the opportunity to get involved in all this. It's been talked about within the relocation industry about broadening the wings, but nobody's done it. But here you are, Pierre, you're out front.
Yeah, thank you, Ed. Well, indeed, we're kind of a game changer in the industry. I mean, Coptalis is quite a young company. It was founded like 10 years ago. We celebrate in 2022 our 10th anniversary, and basically, originally was a recruitment company specialized in IT profiles. And I mean, the two founders found out that in a way the recruitment industry hadn't changed for quite a while, and they decided to be a game changer and not only source and recruit people, but also accompany them through the career path. So meaning doing all the relocation services, helping companies with immigration, house finding, and also provide training, like language training, training in terms of integration, in cross-cultural training, and all that kind of training. So basically, it's to go to the corporate world and say, not only do we help you relocate your talents, but we will help you spot and recruit your talents. So basically, that's what we're offering. Whilst offering also another experience to the talents, meaning, a lot of people, when there is an ad, just send their CV, and if they're lucky, in this world, they will receive an answer. If not, their CV will go, we don't know where. So the idea is also to provide them with a different experience and help them through the process and say, okay, you want to relocate to another part of the world, we help you out. That's the idea of that. And so far we have been quite successful, because since 2012, we have been doubling our revenue every year. Of course, there's been a slowdown with the COVID, but we're still on the path to resume that growth and develop in other locations. And of course, there is a talent shortage across the world that gives us a lot of opportunities. Of course, our core talent scope is IT, but we are also very much involved in other areas such as health, healthcare, all these jobs where companies are struggling to find the right talents.
So recently you acquired or made an arrangement in Spain.
Correct. Yeah, I'm very pleased to say that we have acquired a company called Antares with my very good friend Susanna Borns, who is also a Eurobond member. She's a vice president. So it's good to have friends in that organization too. And there are a lot of projects in the pipeline too. So we are going to enlarge our presence across the globe, definitely.
Yeah, interesting stuff. So Marianne, you've been called a human link a bit, right? With all the energy.
Human hyperlink.
Yeah, right, something like that. So what does that mean?
Oh, that means I have my finger on the pulse of many things going on around the globe. And I have, the other thing I forgot to mention is that I do some work with a group called Tech Women. It's a US Department of State sponsored program that brings women from the Middle East, Africa, South and Central Asia to work in Silicon Valley companies. And there's a group that are actually arriving in the United States tomorrow. Last year, we had to do everything virtually because of the pandemic. So this year, I am an impact coach for the women from Jordan, and they're all women in science, technology, engineering, and math. So what that means is I have to help them develop a business plan of what they're going to do when they go back home after the program. It's very exciting because no one's seen anybody for almost 2 years. So the fact that they're arriving tomorrow is super, super exciting. So the human hyperlink part, not to digress, is I have these connections all over the world because I too have lived and worked overseas, and I have this uncanny knack of maintaining relationships with people throughout my life. It's a big job.
Good for you.
That's great.
We're going to be joined a little bit later by a current human resource manager, talent mobility for a company that's based in North Carolina. And she's going to give us some insight. She's in a staff meeting this morning, or where it is now, East Coast time. And as soon as that's over, she's going to jump in here. Now, with that in mind, I have to close this meeting at 45 minutes past the hour, which is about 30 minutes from now. So we want to get right to the point here and talk about war, oil prices spiking, inflation going up. David, Edith, what's your take?
Oh, we live in interesting times. On fast forward, and there are people that know, and there are people that want to know. The challenge is to manage uncertainty for sure, but also the quality of information and experience does come into play as well. So there's a lot of speculation going on. Nobody really knows what's going to happen in Europe, in Ukraine, the Russians there and all. It is a fluid situation. No one knows what will happen ultimately. If things continue to deteriorate and Russia goes forward with an attack beyond the line of control in East Ukraine, then things could get really dicey in the world of energy. Russia is obviously around 40% of Europe's import market for natural gas, 40% of what they use. Oil is, Europe is a major importer of oil from Russia. In theory, that could be cut off and Russian oil could go elsewhere and the Europeans could buy it somewhere else. They can't do that with gas. Similar thing goes on with coal. What this is really a wake-up call. We're going to have to, at some point, start dealing with the world as it really is and not the way we want it to be necessarily. And ultimately, the stable solution coming out of this is going to be a neutral Ukraine. DC can't do that for them. Brussels can't do it for them. It's going to come up to Kiev, and it's a really tough call, but it's going to be up to them to do this.
So we looked at the map this morning. It was on CNBC, and I published it on LinkedIn, where the Nord Stream 2 comes right in. But it's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is that's a tough neighborhood right there with Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, and there's a little corner of Russia in between all of that. David, what happened there? They wanted to have access to the ocean. Is that what that's about? Well, they took that little space in between Poland.
Oh, no, Kaliningrad goes back to the Second World War. Going into World War II, Germany ran across the north side of Poland. There was a thin spit of land called the Danzig Corridor. And then the Baltic states were briefly independent after World War I, coming up to World War II. The Nord Stream pipeline is a double pipeline. Nord Stream 1 is already in and runs at full capacity. Nord Stream 2 is another 55 billion cubic meters a year. And it's really designed to go avoid transit countries. The current line that's running across Yamal is going to be closed, I think, later this year, in effect. At the end of the Soviet Union, when the Soviet Union broke up, almost 100% of Soviet gas exports went across the Ukraine. Post-independence, Russia has sought to avoid transit countries, be it the Baltics or Ukraine. And that's what Nord Stream 2 is all about. So for the time being, presuming the lines remain open through Ukraine, Nord Stream 2 can remain inactive. But over time, as the next decade goes, domestic gas production in Europe will fall. Norway is peaking and will go into a sustained decline. There's no going back on any of that. There's not enough LNG in the world to fill in the hole that would be left. It's an interesting time.
So I read in Financial Times, I guess it was, and then it was picked up in New York Times, that during January, the US began shipping LNG into Europe, where they loaded into a boat, in, I guess, Houston, and then off it goes. But they said that they sent so much over that it was like a record-breaking quantity of LNG. Is that BS, David, or is that real?
Well, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. So the United States has become essentially the world's largest supplier of LNG. The majority of that LNG coming out of various facilities on the Gulf of Mexico coast is sold on contract basis, multi-year contracts. European buyers are important customers. Asian buyers are bigger customers. 2021 was all about a battle between buyers of LNG in Asia competing with sudden demand for LNG in Europe. And it all took place at the spot market. Yes, there's been this big wave of this caravan of tankers heading from North America to Europe. That's not so much a decision by the United States or even by American companies. Primarily, it's by companies, international companies, deciding to take advantage of an amazing price opportunity in Europe. And so they're, with storages being filled in East Asia and a relatively benign winter in East Asia, unlike last year, cargoes were turned around and sold at premium spot market prices.
So inflation is here for a while, tied in with the tension between Russia and primarily the US, with Europe being the pawn in the middle,
Well,
as I see it.
So if things fall apart such that there are real cuts in energy flows from Russia to the outside world, none of us have ever experienced the kind of price spikes that will take place. And inflation will, it will be completely unhinged, but the inflation will be a problem to deal with after the fact that there's not gas for heating, that there's not natural gas for powering electricity generation. It's the mirror. Natural gas is the mirror for renewables, which is a big issue for Europe. So challenging times, cool heads, pragmatism, because the consequences of ill-considered moves by anyone are very high, very high.
So this is really dramatic as I see it. And of course, we're not being told all the details, but we know, anyone who's been watching the news would know that what Putin wants is to become a king, more than he already is, and to break apart NATO or cause a problem in Europe, whereby the US is pushed away from all of this, because the Europeans say, we don't want to have a cold winter. We don't want to have all this problem. And yet the US appears to want to keep everybody in line. Gary Sanger, what do you think? Of course, this is all crystal balling right now, but how is this going to impact executive recruitment?
Small question, huh? I think the clients, and we're primarily a middle market focused customer base, if you will. We have some larger Fortune 500s. We have some smaller emerging ones. But I've sensed that, just on a spot look at it, we had a year or two where there were hardly any multiple offers for our final candidates. Now we're back to two or three other offers from other companies for our final candidates. So we're seeing the demand increase. The supply gets smaller as they're going after the A players. The biggest two issues I see that are happening, or maybe biggest three, would be number one, you had companies really trying to continue to establish or reinforce their culture. And when you have the second part of it happening with succession planning, and you have execs moving on, you have the next generation in underneath them, that culture is hard to keep. And third, when you have the hybrid situation, most of our essential companies need their people there on site to make the widgets and to make the supply chain happen. So the culture, what it is, what they want it to become, certainly if you're in the acquisition game, that's a very challenging situation that most of the time you're doing that remotely or virtually. And then the succession planning, we have a couple of clients that are very, very focused on what their mix is as it relates to customers, their race, their gender, the geography spread of that, and making sure their executives match that. On the hybrid side of it, we noticed that some of the big boys out there, the Googles, the Apples, et cetera, most of them are taking a year view to say, look, we're just not going to go back in person. But I find most of the rest of the world getting very restless and trying to say, when can we have in-person meetings? When can we go back to the office? You know, then the next strain comes out and we're back through this. We're here in Southern California, you know, which is not been a very pleasant situation in terms of on with masks, off with masks, you know, those in schools. So really some big issues going on, but the summary would be the small supply of a talent and the demand is large.
Gary, thanks very much. I'm sorry we don't have much time, but I want you to come back to our next edition, whether it's next week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
I'm in. I'd love to.
Cool. All right. What about ageism? In other words, old guys like me, wouldn't I get rehired now to bring my expertise and know-how and contacts back into the fold?
You know, I think that really depends on companies. It depends a lot. You know, I think an increased value for those with scars on their back, those with few less hair or more gray hair, and those with the experiences. I think it really completely depends by company and even somewhat by industry. And most of my industries are pretty neutral on that, quite frankly.
Right. Mark Native.
And I remember back being your age, quite frankly.
Thank you. Me too. I mean, I think those are great points. I think one of the things that we've seen, at least in our patina business, is significant growth to solve for short-term kind of expertise to help the company work through things because of the labor shortage, right? And Gary said it super well, is that, you know, the market is really picked up. I think the other piece that we see is, and everyone talks about, you know, the great resignation. I always call it the great reevaluation, is that people are just making much more different decisions about what they want to do now based on what they've been through the last 2 or 3 years. And I think that that's a really big thing. And the third one that ties into that is this whole question of burnout and mental health and wellness for people is so significant. I mean, I've been involved in education for a long time, but in the work that I'm doing now at a university level, it's really significant. It's significant at all levels, but when you have people starting in school and they started out virtual and they haven't built those connections, just like in a work environment, it's really tough. And I think companies that are finding the balance, I think you're right, it's kind of a hybrid model that I'm seeing, at least in the markets that we're in. And in the Midwest, it's a little different than maybe other coasts, but we're really trying to have people come back, and the value of having those interconnectedness and team and coaching and all that.
Before we get further, look down the screen at chat and go in there and click on everyone, and please exchange email addresses, website addresses. Your ROI from today is going to be these connections, so that dialogue happens, and that'll make me real happy if you guys connect. Let's go quickly back to David Edick. Having heard about the talent side of this thing and the intersection now with geopolitics, I'm sorry, this is not rehearsed, everybody. We're just going seat of the pants because that is creating the spontaneity here. David, what's your take?
Well, you know, so geopolitics does have an impact, I think, on HR. I don't think what's happening in Eastern Europe has much of an effect on HR, but Brexit, and in particular, what's happening in East Asia does. The evolving situation here in recent years over Hong Kong, you know, and will Singapore fill the gap? But are people willing to go to Hong Kong? And it's way beyond something like COVID-19 restrictions. the Hong Kong environment has changed. Nobody really knows how much further it's going to go, and that's an environment where executive recruitment is real. That's a big deal.
Right. And just in today's news, picked up off CNBC, a major outbreak again in Hong Kong right now, and they're locking everybody in.
They're taking the lid off. So very quietly, while everybody was focused on the Olympics and all of what's going on in Eastern Europe, Xi Jinping has stepped back and is no longer running the COVID thing from Beijing with the tight hands on the reins. He's pushed out responsibility for COVID policy to the provinces. And so this is opening up. So I'm not surprised at the numbers in Hong Kong. It's kind of a shock for them. But there'll be more of this over here the next couple months.
We got 10 minutes left, Pierre. Come back to what you're doing in spotting talent and communicating, keeping them tied to you somehow, right? Until it's time to relocate them. Yeah.
I mean, to go back to what has been said, we don't see any major impact in the human resources so far. In global mobility, we don't like war. We don't like COVID, but war is an obstacle to global mobility. But we think that probably there is a difference between Western Europe and Eastern Europe. I think we need to make a difference in a way. I think Western Europe is a bit protected from what is going on in Eastern Europe. However, I mean, there must be concern in Central and Eastern Europe. And I think that might lead to some, talents to decide to try to move to Western Europe when there is some kind of safety. Because I think what we are seeing in a way, and the fears in Central and Eastern Europe, and I lived 4 years in Budapest, clearly. So they have a bad experience with Russia in the past, clearly, and they don't want to go back to that. So there might be that young talents might decide that it's time to build their life in Western Europe or any other place, whether it is in North America or Asia. And we see a growing demands from all these countries to attract the best talents. So that's going to be challenging for the countries of Central and Eastern Europe. When you live in Ukraine, when you live in Romania or Poland, you might fear that Russia is coming closer. I don't think personally, but it's a personal opinion, that Russia wants a global war, because business is concerned, and they need to trade with the rest of the world. And I don't think Putin is a stupid man. I don't think so. I hope he's not. You never know. History tells you. Yeah, history tells you that sometimes you need to be careful. But I think all these people might decide to come to other location, and we have seen that with Switzerland. I mean, we have seen a lot of people trying to move to Switzerland where they see that it's a kind of peace island where there is safety, where they believe things are not going to change. So we will see movements of talents and people trying to reach for a better life in other places. So I think, what is going on right now, we'll see some mobility opportunities for a lot of people.
We are pleased to welcome Adamo Education as a proud sponsor of Global TV Talk Show.
The concept of a microschool is the reimagining of the one-room schoolhouse. My name is Tamara Becker. I'm the president and CEO of Adamo Education. The microschool concept really does not just lend itself to the personalization and the customization of learning, but also the social development and fostering that sense of love for learning. Unlike what we see in traditional brick and mortar schools, we have multiple grade levels in the same learning space. Students can be enriched by the socialization that they get, as well as the academic support from peers. What differentiates Adamo is the fact that we are taking the best pieces of brick and mortar, of digital, and then at-home learning. Students here can come 5 days a week. They can come 4 hours a day. It will really just depend on what is best for the student and for the parent. To enroll, just reach out via phone, text, or email, and we'll have that personalized conversation, and we'll be able to get you all set. Check us out at adamoeducation.org.
Hi, this is Ed, and I thank you for tuning in to Global TV Talk Show, a unit on globalbusinessnews.net. We broadcast to the world, as you know by now. So I wanted to make sure that you understand that our programs are advertising supported. We're grateful for co-sponsors, advertisers. They have a marketing budget coupled with a strong desire to be associated with our top quality program. And of course, I'm grateful. Thank you. So for the next few minutes, you're going to see some commercials. It's mostly very low key, and our prices are very, very reasonable. Our exposure for the advertisers go 12 months and beyond. Some of our advertisers have been with us since March, April of 2020. And Google Analytics has tracked over 125,000 what they call audience page views, which means you looking at this page, that's a page view. Now, if you happen to go to one of our other shows or to our radio broadcasts or to our newspaper or magazine, those become additional page views as measured by Google Analytics. And so when they say 125,000 since spring of 2020 up through Labor Day, a month ago, that's pretty good numbers. And the past 30 days, Google Analytics has measured just under 6,000 audience page views. And that, according to them, is a 42% increase in audience participation over the month of August. So thank you very much. Well, here's our advertisers, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes or so, and we'll proceed with this interesting conversation. Thank you.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by
The Bridge School, the accredited international online private school of choice at bridgek12.org.
Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
And by airs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at airs.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
And by International Auto Source. We are the vehicle experts for expats, featuring all major brands of automobiles with flexible solutions and financing. On the web at intlauto.com.
Become a global player in your field.
Cross Culture to Go provides virtual support for your global business and career success.
We can help you thrive in 140 plus countries and markets.
On the web at crossculturetogo.com.
Something that's really neat is that the Bridge School partners with various organizations to provide learning for their students. For example, we partner with a major ballet company, and we are able to enroll several of their students into our school. So now not only is the student able to participate in a school and have a seamless transition while they're very active in their ballet career, but now they have other dancers that are with them that are doing some of the same courses. So it's almost becoming a camaraderie where they're taking similar courses, they're working together on their ballet, and really being able to form this great partnership with these organizations to provide a needed service. A lot of times there are student athletes who will spend hours and hours at the gym or at the basketball courts, wherever it is. And if they're attending a traditional school, they're in school from 8 to 3. They get a quick snack, and then they're at the gym for 3 to 4 hours in the evening. Coming to us and having that partnership, they're able to break that up throughout the day. They can have a morning practice, get some schooling in, have an afternoon practice, finish their schooling in the evening. So there's that flexibility. And additionally, if there are tournaments or performances, it's fantastic because if there's a week where they have shows straight through, they can take that week off of learning and then pick back up when they're done. So it offers this great flexibility. And for the program owners of these sports leagues, it is a win-win situation for them because they see this need. They see this need that their students need to make sure that they are obtaining the grades necessary to be successful adults in our country and in other countries. But it provides them an environment where they can be successful at both.
Hi, I'm Sergey Gorbatov.
I'm Angela Lane.
Together we are researchers, writers and practitioners in the field of human resources.
And we've also been multi-country, multi-assignment career expats.
We owe our professional development and growth to a very large extent to the international assignment opportunities that we have had.
But in a world where distributed work may become the norm, we also want to understand what happened to the nature, duration, and purpose of international assignments.
Together with our colleague, Julian Dalzell from the University of South Carolina, we're undertaking a study on the future of expatriation.
And we'd value your contribution. You can participate in this important study by completing a simple 10-minute questionnaire.
Access the questionnaire by typing in your browser tinyurl.com/expert study. That's tinyurl.com/expert study. You can also find the link here on Ed's website next to this video.
Thank you for joining us in this study. In return for your contribution, we'll provide you with a copy of our research.
And of course, you'll be invited to an exclusive webinar hosted by Ed, where we will share our findings right here on Global Business News.
And so please go to tinyurl.com/expat study. Take the survey so that we can better understand the future of expatriation.
Marianne, is your business picking up?
Kind of, yeah. It's. I got to put it on hold for a little bit because while the tech women are here for 5 weeks, that is my major focus for the next 5 weeks.
So are you being den mother? What are you going to be doing for 5 weeks?
Den mother? No. I'm an impact coach. I have to have this group of Jordanian women come up with a social impact plan of what they're going to do when they return back to Jordan. And I basically have to guide them through the process of focusing on one plan because everybody comes with their different ideas. But because they're only here for 5 weeks, I just have to rein them in. They're going to be jet lagged for 2 days anyway. So
you're okay for 2 days then.
So I just want to say briefly on our October 8th program, we have, as I mentioned, I'm sorry. Yeah. March 8th, thank you. And thank you for being on the program. So we have women who are in
good job.
And who will be speakers, and they're really excited about getting out to the world, using our broadcast as part of that. But they are already doing some really aggressive things, and these are smart and very beautiful looking women too. And so Is your Jordan group, are they in conservative attire, or are they more
I haven't met them
westernized?
yet. I'll meet them tomorrow.
Excellent.
All I have is little thumbnail pictures. So some of them wear hijab and some of them don't. It's a mixed group.
Mary Ann, do
interesting.
many of them have an engineering background? If they do, I have some very hungry clients that would love to have some access to those young ladies.
They all have science, technology, engineering, or math backgrounds. The
Yeah.
issue is they come on J visas for this program.
Yep.
So they have a 2-year residency requirement back in their home country after they finish the program.
Isn't that interesting? David Edick, I'm turning this over to you now, as I really appreciate your time, and I want you to please come back and sooner than later. I'm ready to do this once a week, but I can't do it alone. And I know there may be some time issues and all that, but let's continue this conversation. But I'd like to give the floor to you to give us your insight here a little bit more.
Well, I guess I would say put down the newspaper, stay away from the media. There's going to be a tremendous amount of noise, a lot of emotion going on right now. Wow, I wish I was on that program with Mary Ann. You know, there's so much going on in the world outside of the conflict zones. I think it's really crucial that Americans, I don't know, Pierre, you're on the call here, but, you know, I think it's really crucial that Americans tune into what is actually going on in the world and how much things have changed in the last 20 years, how much the world has grown, how sophisticated that world is out there. And it's filled with opportunity, and it's really not so much to be scared of, but we're falling into that, and that worries me.
Right. I don't know what to say beyond that. Mark, do you want to sum up? How are you handling this current situation, being an executive in residence, dealing with faculty as well as graduate students as well as undergraduates?
Well, we have students from all over the world, so it is really important that, you know, I think one of the things that David in the other meetings is we all have to talk and connect. You know, we have to spend time listening. I know that sounds so basic, but, you know, people are hurting right now, and we have to, you know, just be open to saying, you know, there aren't really good answers in a lot of areas, right? But I think the more we can connect people, connect dots, and I love what David said about put the newspaper down. So I try to do that. Sometimes I'm not good at it, but I think we need to kind of tune some of this out right now, because there's a lot of noise, and yes, it all, you know, there's important things that we need to know, but I think we have to really be human. That's what I would say.
Gary?
You know, the simplicity of this is we still have a company to run. We still have customers to serve. And we still have to have the basis by knowing just what our company is great at and stay focused on it. And so the people you need to do that, go and get them and don't settle. You know, create the good odds for yourself. That it's just not the person down the street that happens to be a friend of your daughter's that you're going to go hire for your company. You know, get what you absolutely need for the organization to make it grow.
So this is Ed in San Diego, Pierre in Geneva, Mary Ann in San Francisco, Gary in LA, Mark in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and Dave Edick a little bit east of San Diego. Thank you all for being on Global TV Talk Show, and we'll do this again very soon. We'll be in touch. Thank you,
everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Good job.
Great to meet everybody.
You got this figured out, Ed. Nicely done.
Well, it's because of you guys.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe.